Come on.
Welcome to Part of the Solution podcast, hosted by me, Natalie Damiano. Join me for a discussion on all things health, wellness, fitness, parenting, and more, all with a healthy dose of humor. Today, I have an amazing guest with me. Her name is Lisa. She is the co-founder of the Green Door Life Nutrition and Fitness. What's the full name?
The Green Door Life. So we do nutrition coaching, strength training, mindset, mastery, lifestyle, all the things.
Everything encompassed into like one pretty package.
Pretty much.
Lots of hard work.
Yep.
Yeah. So for people who don't know you, tell me or tell the audience a little bit about who you are, give a little bit more detail on how they can find you and kind of how you got into this journey in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. So I've been into health and fitness, for most of my adult life. Once I got to college, I realized, I wasn't playing sports anymore. And all of a sudden I started gaining weight and I was like, oh crap, like what is happening? Like never had an issue with weight or health, didn't even really think about it, when I was a teenager or anything like that. And that kind of sparked my lifelong adult interest in like, how do I take care of this vehicle when those environmental, automatic, non-negotiable things that we had going on when we were younger for most of us are no longer active. And it's like, when you're not playing sports anymore and your activity levels change and your lifestyle changes, especially as we age, you can't get away with doing the same things that you did. And something has to shift or you're going to feel that impact. So I went through bouts of really, really struggling with disordered eating, self-diagnosed bulimia, non-purging type. I was actually studied in college. I was a psychology major, and one of my favorite classes was this eating disorders class. And, they go through, the categorization like DSM-5 or 4 at the time criteria of like, if you have all of these, like you have this disorder. And I never thought about it because I'm like, oh, I didn't, I'm obviously at the time I was like, I'm not anorexic. I never considered myself bulimic because I wasn't purging, but I think a lot of women don't realize that there is this subcategory of this binge restrict cycle where you are restricting food for a period of time and then you binge and you compensate with exercise and calorie restriction.
Yes.
Wild, Natalie, to me nowadays, and I'll share more about how I got into nutrition coaching, is that very much right now, the popular fads and trends that are really studied in and geared towards men are like intermittent fasting and extended intermittent fasting and things like that are, if you look at the protocol, it's the same thing as a DSM categorized eating disorder. So it really, like for me at the time, as going through these struggles with trying to, find a way, like I didn't have any education on how to take care of my body, really,
Yeah.
There was no, what we teach in our program, we honestly feel like should be taught to kindergartners. It's nutrition science. So I had no idea.
We could redo all of schooling.
Yes.
I think all of us parents out there feel like, why isn't their class just on common sense or, just whatever? And food and nutrition is 1,000% one of them. Like, why are these kids learning about seismic waves in the ocean when they could be learning more about like, here's your body, treat it well and trust that it's going to respond well.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Yeah. Because this is the vehicle through which we experience life.
Yeah.
And what we've really come to as a modern society with all of these technological advances is we've kind of just been like setting that physical self-care aside. And because it's not a part of our environment anymore. Yeah. It's not a everyday working demand that just happens. Now it's like we have to actually intentionally try to integrate certain like skills and activities and ways of eating and being in order just to be healthy and like functioning, which is wild.
Yeah. I think as a society, especially my generation, your generation, and
it's becoming more of the norm. It's becoming more of the talk that I'm having with women, with friends, with groups of people, with other moms at school, with you online. It's definitely so. I'm hopeful for the future because I think health is trending. Health, being
Yes,
healthy is really popular
it
um, in
is.
this demographic. And I think that's freaking awesome. And I hope that it just continues to climb and skyrocket so that we can be better as a society. Because
Absolutely.
why there's such a focus on being unhealthy I mean, I'm shocked at this point that cigarettes are even still legal, like,
Yes.
so I am just happy, and I'm happy for women like you and Shannon who are really doing the work and really teaching and putting out education that's true, well thought out, well studied. You're not just pulling from one audience or one paper written on that or whatever. It's like a big collaborative effort, and you're giving out real information that real people need.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really like to cut through the fads and the trends and the noise because it's overwhelming. Like we
Yeah.
were talking about before we hopped on, you can find one study over here that says eggs are terrible for you, but in reality, like, is that true? They're actually one of the most like nutrient dense, amazing foods you can eat.
Yeah.
And some people can't tolerate them. So
Yeah.
there's so much nuance and bio individuality when it comes to nutrition and even like exercise and certain health protocols. We're with you. I think we've reached this place as a society where we're just not willing to sacrifice like our physical, mental, emotional health anymore for what? For a lifestyle that we can't uphold, for money. People are really waking up of like, I don't want to live my life so unhealthy and just dragging and then get to this older age and then like save, like put all my chips in one basket and then like wait for this like end of life experience where all of a sudden then I'm going to take care of my body. Like, no.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
No, we're not doing that anymore. I really believe we're in like a tower moment. If anyone's into tarot cards, I was just like a tower moment of all these institutions, these ways of being that we've adopted in the past couple hundred years, they're collapsing. We're like, oh, this isn't sustainable. It's not healthy.
No.
We're seeing this, on a huge scale in terms of like physical health in our children, adults, everyone now. After I got through college and I did all the things, Natalie, just like everyone. I'm like,
yeah,
the woman I talk to, I'm like South Beach diet, Atkins, the cabbage soup diet, not eating, aka intermittent fasting, which is like acceptable now. Gosh, the Slim Fast diet. That was my first diet I ever began.
a shake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go figure. Like just have this shake. Dexatrim, the Fedra pills, Hydroxycut. I mean, everything under the sun, thinking like something was wrong with me. Like, why can't I manage my appetite? Why do I feel so terrible? Why do I have so much body fat?
Yeah.
And I was exercising so hard. I was doing 2 hours a day in the gym and just thought like, I'm broke. My body's broken.
Yeah.
Things changed for me when I became pregnant in 2012. And leave it to mothers, even in pregnancy, they're like, okay, well, my health, whatever. But when knowing that I was bringing a child into the world, I was like, I need to get my ass in gear and not only figure out this food thing, because I'm no longer going to be responsible for myself. I'm going to be responsible for another human life.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of really going this alternative path and walking away from Western medicine, from just like your typical care and typical way of doing things. And ultimately, I got into strength training. I got to train with some really incredible coaches who trained like professional athletes along the way. So I really learned. I was surrounded by a lot of men, to be honest, at the time. Women were not in the weight room.
Yeah, no.
Not in the weight room. I am dating myself now.
Yeah.
I remember being in college and I was the only woman, the only female in the weight room. And it was so freaking intimidating. And I was like, I remember putting on my big headphones and I had like my Walkman in my hand. And I'm like listening to like AC/DC, like trying to get myself jacked up to like walk into this. We called it the pit, and it was all dudes. And I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was doing. And I'm like, I'm lifting weights. Like this feels good in my body. Like I
Yeah.
love the feeling of like being strong. And so I was coached and trained by these incredible trainers. And they, for the first time in my life, it wasn't about how skinny can you get? How much can you not eat? They were like, you're strong AF. Let's let's explore that. And they really
Yeah.
celebrated and pushed for the first time in my life, like a athletic performance celebration as a woman.
Yes.
And
I have definitely felt that same energy in the gym, being only a few girls in a sea of men. And for me, and I'm sounds like for you, like part of it was empowering, like it gave me this huge confidence boost. And like I wanted to be in that room because they were motivating me.
yes. And
Yeah.
it's a shift from, when we grew up, it was very much like a hyper focus. Like when I look back now at the messaging and marketing at the time, like I remember like Us magazine, and you see those, trash magazines in the grocery store, because we didn't have iPhones. We
Yeah.
didn't we didn't have all that technology. So you would walk in the store and it would be like a woman today that would be actually considered very slim or like even thin was trashed on the front pages of these magazines as like Jessica Simpson ballooned up. She was probably like 20% body fat. And looking at these old images, I'm like, no wonder we were so messed up. We were looking at pictures of truly anorexic women, celebrities, and they were hailed as like the look of the time.
Yeah.
So that shift, like we got to live through that, which is
Yeah.
sometimes I get emotional thinking about how much better it is. Like I don't have daughters, but I think about the young women growing up now where there's so much more body acceptance, and
Yes.
especially for like a diversity of bodies where we've almost like the pendulum has swung to the other side where it's like yes to that acceptance, and we can still take care of our bodies. Like
Absolutely.
when you take care of your body, it's not you don't have to let yourself become unhealthy to like give the bird to this way of being from the past. Like we can still
Yeah.
take care of our bodies and nourish our bodies, and they're all going to look different. So eventually this led me to like really developing this beautiful like inner and outer strength. I had my second child and I still didn't have the food thing down. And especially after my second child, we had we basically didn't sleep for 2 years with him. We had a lot of that'll really do you in for any.
Yeah.
He had some challenging issues come up when he was a baby, and my mental physical health just tanked.
Yeah. For sure.
And that's right around the time when I met Shannon. And I met Shannon. Her fiance is one of my best friends from high school. And I was in the corporate world at the time and trying to get through this very, very challenging time with my family. My husband was a firefighter. It was like a single parent half the time.
That's divine intervention.
Yes.
When you said that's when you met Shannon, it kind of gave me the chills because I was like, ooh, that's when the magic happens, because you're at this place where you need to come up, and she's got some of that under her belt already. And that's awesome. I love when people connect like that.
I always remind her, I'm like, I met you at that time, like one of, my rock bottom moments, like dark night of the soul. And at the time I was probably drinking a bottle of wine to myself, like 4 nights a week. I mean, and then I go the next morning, train fasted, like do this hardcore workout, not eat all day. I mean, it was horrible. And I was desperate. I was so desperate. I was so tired of feeling terrible. I thought joining with her, she reached out after the introduction, and, I was like nutrition coach. This was 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Nothing like nutrition coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
even at that time, Instagram and social media was a different place.
Yes.
And like, it was still photos.
Yeah, it was just pictures of like where the park that you went to with your kids or like a vacation.
100%. And it was like like information era. And
Yes.
so I had no idea what I signed up for. I was like, oh, she's a nutrition coach. I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, I'll check this out.
And I thought it was going to be a diet. And as soon as I agreed to do it, I was like trying to quit immediately. I was like, oh, what am I thinking? Like, I don't want to diet. I've dieted my whole life, blah, blah, blah. And she's just so calm. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. She's so calm and so grounded. And I was like, I want that. Like, I want that energy. And like, I didn't even put two and two together at the time. But what I've come to find is that groundedness and that anchored presence really starts with food.
Yeah.
Care. And so I trusted the process. I jumped in. Within 3 days, I mean, she was probably like, oh my God, you are too much. But I'm just writing her novels. All of our coaching was done over email. And I'm just writing her novels of all the things that have changed in my life from 3 days of eating in balance and what we teach in our 12 Awaken Your Nutrition program.
Oh my gosh.
And that is why I left my corporate job.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, this has literally changed my life in such a short period of time. Like, I felt like a divine intervention of.
Yeah, you were ready to accept that. You were calling that in 100%.
And it was like, everybody needs to know this. Like, my mission, and, I have a soft spot, obviously, for mothers and women, because we tend to put ourselves last in the way that our society is set up. Like, we're really wearing the hats of everything. And it's so unsustainable, like from being our kids' playmates to a lot of us are financial providers. A lot of us are, we're wearing all these hats. We're not in that kind of communal living anymore. So we're bearing so much more of this responsibility. And we'll get into hormones in a bit. Like, that is a huge factor why we're so burnt out and we're living in this chronic stress state. So my personal mission is I want to get this information out to mothers, because mothers will change the world. Mothers will teach this to their children, not even with saying a thing, but just from their way of being, because kids watch us. Yeah. And so that, like, the benefits that started there, from improved mood and stable energy. I mean, I was struggling so hard at the time, just dealing with my 2-year-old's tantrums. And now I was able to, like, my nervous system was regulated. And I never put it together. Like, oh, geez, not eating all day and drinking coffee all day is putting me in a hyper stress state. So I can't, am I going to calmly respond to this little...
Yeah. And when you're on the other side of that, and by no means is my nutrition 1,000%, but like, once you're over here on this side and you're able to handle things and things go a lot smoother for you and you're not having breakdowns and you're not freaking out and it's more consistent, not high, low. Like you were saying, you want to tell everybody about it. You're like, oh my gosh, like over here is so great. Like, this is so much better. And you want to teach people. And the hard thing, and I'm sure you've struggled with it, is you want to like imprint this onto people and be like, no, it's like you're on the Kool-Aid for sure.
Yes.
And people have to come and want it and invite it in like you did. Your best client is that rock bottom client, like that person who's tried and exhausted everything. And they're finally like, I'm ready to just shut up and listen and learn and like take in everything.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And having that right guide, that right mentor, like we really, even with all the change that has come and kind of the stuff that we're processing through that has really had a negative impact on overall health, the benefit is, okay, we're in this place now of the information age where it's not this secret private non-accessible information anymore.
Yeah.
Although that does bring the issue of like too much information. And then you're like,
Yes.
oh, God, like you're stuck in analysis paralysis where you're like, I don't even know where to start.
Yes, it can be very hard to be healthy because everything contradicts.
Yes.
But I love about your program is that it's the basics. It seems it's not simple because the hard part is here. Like the hard part is the mindset. I think doing the work is probably the easiest part. It's getting yourself over that hump and actually being willing to do the work.
Yes.
And that's the hardest shift of all. So I know that you guys have some stuff coming down the pipeline later on in this year. I know it has to do with hormones, and you know that I have issues with hormones and perimenopause and my menstrual cycle and all the things. So let's shift gears and maybe just tease us a little bit with what you guys have got coming, but really this is your expertise. And so I would love to just go over and have you speak on like the woman who, I don't want to put an age out there because I know things can happen at any age, but that woman who's maybe feeling these struggles, or like, for instance, myself having irregular menstrual cycles, having very intense ones. You know, I'm playing with the idea of getting a hysterectomy and all of these things that my doctors are like on board with 100%. So I'd love to just have you speak on all of that because it's a hot topic. I think, again, there's a lot of information out there, so people want to know. And I trust that what you're going to be teaching and telling us about is factual based from 1,000 different papers that you've read, or, you know, it's not just because Johnson and Johnson is funding you to say this, you know?
Right. Well, this is so fascinating, and it totally ties into my story of meeting Shannon, because at that time, Natalie, same as you, I was pre-diabetic. So I had just tested for pre-diabetes, which is just wild because I didn't look, and I wasn't like excessively overweight. I felt
people think you're big, you have diabetes. That's the only reason. Yeah.
Which could not be further from the truth. Like you can look anyway on the outside. So I had tested it positive for pre-diabetes. This is at 36. Like to me, it's unacceptable.
Absolutely.
And you know, I was eating super low carb, you know, and we'll talk about that too. Like, how do you develop pre-diabetes and diabetes if you're eating low carb? Great question. I'm going to talk about
that. Okay. We'll table that one, but we'll make sure to circle back to it.
And then at the same time, my OBGYN at the time wanted me to get a hysterectomy because my periods were so heavy. Yes. Like I could not leave the house heavy. Yes. Like don't want to go TMI, but literally like every like 15, 20 minutes, like that heavy, you know, blood clots that just don't like, that looked like I had just given birth. I'm
absolutely.
Like, I've seen those blood clots before.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, so the 3 days that I started Awaken Your Nutrition with Shannon and saw all these incredible, you know, besides dropping weight and inflammation dropping and my mood stabilizing, I started to see changes in my period within 1 month. So within that first month of balancing my period changed overnight.
Wow.
And that moment was my second, like, you know, spark.
I was just going to say, that's an aha moment. Like that will sell your program just by saying that.
And that led me down kind of this specialty route of studying hormones. And because I knew how debilitating it was to have these heavy, heavy periods, to the point where I was like, I just want to get rid of this. Like, I don't know what to do. This isn't normal. Not once did anyone ask me about my diet, because our doctors aren't trained in that. And
I haven't been asked that. I've just been asked, when do you want to schedule a hysterectomy? Because that'll just nip in the butt, which sounds great. Who doesn't want to not have their period? And, you know, like it's very appetizing.
I know. And so I went from that, you know, they're trained for like emergency response, really, of like, how do we stop like emergency issues that are going to kill you, really.
Yeah.
They're not trained in preventative. So, and we want them to have their specialty there. So it's really, I think rather than us blaming Western medicine and doctors, I'm like, no, it's there and it's helpful for a reason. The onus is on us.
Yeah.
Right. As citizens or civilians to take charge of our own health in a preventative way. And so that's when I put two and two together. I started obsessively studying about hormones. And what I've learned, if I can give one overall takeaway, your hormones in the body, they're chemical messengers that tell your body and regulate all these processes, from your appetite to your metabolism, how many calories you burn a day, to your mood, to your energy, to your libido. I mean, almost every process you can think of, hormones are involved. And what you need to know as a woman is that your period, if you're still menstruating, it's your fifth vital sign. So it's your, if we can do blood pressure and all these things, and pulse and heart rate, it's your period is an indicator of your overall health. So rather than just putting a Band-Aid on these issues, you actually want to get it under the hood and get to the root cause of any period problems, even in perimenopause, because perimenopause was not a thing.
Yeah.
It should be relatively not a thing.
I really like how you put it's your fifth vital sign. Like that just went, oh shit. Okay. Like I've never heard it been said like that before. And that really makes sense because it's a big part of our lives as women. Like it happens all the time. It's, and it's totally a huge part of our life. And I think that's such a great way to think about it.
Right. And so going from, once I understood, like, why do we have periods besides like for procreation? Like, do we need periods and what is the benefit of them? That led me down this total shift in belief and mindset from I hate my period, right? And then think about, thoughts becoming things and the energy of that.
Yeah.
But so many of us have been brought up to like, think of your period as something icky or shameful. It was not talked about when I was a kid. I had to learn about a tampon from my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or like what to do. So it was not discussed out in the open when I was young. And once I learned, I'm like, oh my God, like your period, and when you ovulate, you create this tissue in your body that creates its own hormone, progesterone. That is like, this does not happen in men. It is like your own tissue. When you develop this tissue, it creates its own hormone. It's a special hormone secretion that only happens with ovulation. If you're on hormonal birth control, if you get a hysterectomy, if you're kind of going around like the Band-Aid approach, or if you have an imbalance of hormones, you may not be ovulating. And when you turn that ovulation off, you're going to miss out on the health benefits of having enough progesterone produced in a lifetime. So when you told me, Natalie, about the hysterectomy, I'm like, we need to talk.
So tell, for myself and for the listeners, tell us a little bit about what progesterone is.
So progesterone, you can think of progestation. It is the hormone of pregnancy. And if you've been pregnant and you remember that, some women get like acne, I get that, like everyone has a different response, but in general, progesterone is like your hair's vibrant and your skin's glowing and you're just like,
yes, okay, the pregnancy glow. You're
a Venus Aphrodite goddess. That is, I think of progesterone as just like goddess. It's a goddess hormone. One thing most women—
sounds great.
I know.
I love this hormone now.
I know. It's like, now this helped me be like, oh, my period is something that I should be celebrating and that I should be grateful for, because we need progesterone. So especially because as women, we're not having as many kids or any kids. So we're missing out on this progesterone. Our ancestors, our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, they had way more kids. So they had way less estrogen and more progesterone in their lifetime span. When you're pregnant, it's all progesterone. So it had more of this beautiful balance.
Yeah.
I like a way to remember your two kind of opposing hormones, estrogen and progesterone, is estrogen is like your party girl, like hot 20-year-old self that rages. She's got all the energy, and that's great. We want her. We love her, but we do not need her staying out till like 4 a.m. every night. And like, we don't want an excess of estrogen. Progesterone is like your granny girl, goddess, like she's sitting in the bath and just, nourishing herself. And that is really supposed to be produced in the second half of your cycle in your luteal phase. So from ovulation to the day before your period. And unfortunately, because of birth control, because of an overabundance of estrogen, and, for some women, they're not ovulating. And a lot of this has to do with food, environmental toxins, estrogens, these things that are competing with our estrogen receptors. So we have all this extra estrogen in the body. We're not producing enough progesterone. So we're all operating up here.
Yeah.
Like 4 a.m. party girl estrogen out of our minds. And we're losing this nourishing time period each month.
And can women gain more progesterone back as they get older? Is this something that depletes? Like, can we harness more?
So it depends on when you can jump on this train of lifestyle intervention with food, exercise. And when I say exercise, like not overdoing it with exercise for most women.
Yeah.
And then other kind of lifestyle habits that you're managing. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm working with a couple women right now who were getting their periods every 2 weeks, thought they were in perimenopause, like heading straight towards menopause. And just from what we've been teaching and helping with in this new program we're launching probably in August, she's been able to extend that out to 30 days.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, this is what's wild. Perimenopause. So overall, as we age, all of our hormones will lower. We're kind of like on that route. But there's so much we can do with lifestyle practices that were just innate with our ancestors and like what we did every day. Like we were constantly moving our body. We didn't have to strength train. We were picking things up and moving them all the time.
Yeah.
There's certain lifestyle practices that if we can prioritize them, we can make it suck less. We can make that transition and that hormonal shift not so terrible. And what's wild about perimenopause, as your hormones are lessening over time, especially after age 35, perimenopause can start as early as age 35 in women. You can alleviate the symptoms so that it's just a breeze. And I think what's really important is understanding that there's no one test for perimenopause. You will probably drive yourself nuts trying to test these hormones at the right time, and you have to test it at the right moment in your cycle.
Yeah. I wouldn't even think to test for it. For me, it just seems so obvious to just listen to your body and feel the cues. And maybe that's because you and I are more in tune with our bodies, but like to test for, I just feel like your gut would just say yes or no. It would just your body just lets you know what's going on.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because this kind of led to, so that was like my deep dive into hormones. Number one was like, okay, I'm going to get my cycle on track. And it was awesome. I no longer had heavy bleeding. It was no longer debilitating.
What were you doing? What was the shift? Was it a vitamin? Was it food? Was it just your mindset? Like, can you give us a little glimpse of what changed it?
For me, it was all the nutrition science protocols that we teach in our program. But to give it a summary, it was moving the timing of my meals instead of stacking them at night, moving them up during the day.
Yeah.
Supposed to be eating.
So you should. So it's not acceptable to not eat all day and then eat 3,000 calories from 6 p.m. to 8:30? Got it.
I mean, it's really, who would have thought, right?
I know.
Especially for women, it's like making sure you're eating breakfast.
Yeah, that's one that I always struggle with. But I will say, since I had a meeting with Shannon on Wednesday, I have had toast with peanut butter every morning before the gym. because I work out at 5:30 and I usually just go fasted because I am the type who likes to just get up and go and do it. And obviously, I'm not going to eat a huge breakfast at that time. And she was like, even if you just get a few bites of toast and peanut butter and then go. And so I've been doing it. And I don't know if it's part me thinking about, but I've been slaying my workout. So I'm good with it, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It is an absolute game changer. So that was
and I don't feel anything. It's not like, oh, I ate toast, now I'm fat. You know, like there was no strings attached to it. It was just something that I was fueling up with really quick for like the greater good of my day.
Yeah. Yeah. We have that tendency to think, especially when we get in those cycles and habits of like not eating breakfast, like I did that for decades.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to think, oh, if I add this thing in, it's going to make me gain weight, or I'm going to go over my calories for the day.
For sure.
No, you're actually the most insulin sensitive in the morning. So
yeah, I think a lot of us struggle with the mindset of that, with the food. Like you were saying, even if you're not truly bulimic or anorexic, I would say 90% of women have some sort of food issue for sure and for me, I'm not hungry that early. It's hard for me to eat a big meal that early, but slowly but surely I've been incorporating just this little piece of toast, and so far so good.
Right. Yeah. I don't know anyone who'd be hungry that early. But we could talk about timing for exercise and kind of hormone release as well, because really what we've come to find, in the changes that I shifted just with meal timing, prioritizing protein, I thought I was eating enough. No.
And is that based off your height, your weight, your activity level, like the amount, how many grams you're supposed to take in?
Yep. All of it, your age, your muscle mass, your training, and essentially what I was able to achieve, which is the foundation of what we teach, was learning how to balance my blood sugar. And when you balance your blood sugar, you balance one of your top tier hormones that impacts every other hormone production in the body. And that's what healed my period issues. So I had no idea until I got into the science of hormones and studying that and menstrual health. And I'm like, oh my God, by balancing my blood sugar, insulin and cortisol are one of your top tier hormones.
Okay.
And if women are skipping meals, not eating regularly, and super stressed out, this is like all women that we work with, every single cascade of hormones from thyroid to estrogen to oxytocin to progesterone, all the downstream hormones are going to have an impact.
Yeah. Wow. I would never even connect the dots on those two.
I know.
Blood glucose levels and your period.
It's wild. And
it is.
For women, it makes sense to me now. Like even if you're in perimenopause and you're still getting a period, even if it's coming every 2 weeks, as a woman, because you can use your period as a vital sign, because your body is deciding every month, is your internal body environment, is it safe enough and is it healthy enough to make a new life?
Mm-hmm.
It makes that decision every month. So if it's making the decision of a really heavy period and cramps and PMS and infertility and PCOS and period problems, that is a really huge red flag. And instead of just putting women on birth control or suggesting a hysterectomy, like obviously there's nuance and there's time and place for that we can have time to go into, but for the most part, it's like you need to get to the root cause. Otherwise, you're going to have health issues in perimenopause, menopause, and later.
Yeah, you're just treating symptoms. You're not getting to the actual issue.
Exactly.
So if I joined your program, what you're basically saying is the first thing you would change is like my diet, my macros, and kind of when I'm eating?
Yep.
Gotcha.
How much, when, so meal timing, meal spacing. And then also, I'm so glad you brought up, Natalie, like the time of your trainings. I know a lot of women, especially mothers, it's like, I used to do that too. I was like, I'm going to get up before the kids. I'm going to get this workout in. And now I'm like, could not be bothered with that, because I know as we get older, especially age 35, how detrimental that is on cortisol and elevated cortisol levels. And we just can't have that. So the last portion of my story really shifted when I turned 40. So I'm 41 now. I'm a new freaking nutrition coach and strength instructor. I turned 40 and my body freaked out. So I'd been doing all these things for 4 years, great periods, great, body composition, low body fat, tons of energy, just crushing life. I turned 40 and I was like, what the hell is happening? And this was
you were like, wait, I thought I was done. I was cured. Like I did all the hard work. Like it was just going to coast.
Yes. And then at the same time, not surprisingly, the women that were magnetizing to work with us are about the same age as us. So we, at the same time, we're getting clients and they were hitting this plateau. And we were like, all right, that led into my deeper dive of hormone education. And that's where it has all circled back to hormones from this top tier approach and its relation to light. And so our new program in the fall is called Awaken Your Cycles. And it's going to be all around hormones that you produce throughout every cycle of life. Mm-hmm. So on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, and then through these big life changes like perimenopause and menopause. And that has been the biggest shift for me in realizing what I was doing. Even at that time, I had to take things even a step further. And the biggest one for me was regulating cortisol. So anything that was when you become, as we age, and it really is like what we're finding, it's like 40 is the number. It's like almost every woman we've been working with is like, I hit 40 and shit happened. We're like, understand. And
I haven't had that. I'm 41 and I haven't had that yet. And I'm going to knock on wood. I want to just myself. I do feel things are changing, but nothing where I'd be like, yes, right at this age, I felt this huge shift. That hasn't been my experience. My mental health, my personal development, that's all kept going and getting better and better and better, which I think definitely plays a role in it. I haven't necessarily had that issue, but there is part of me that's like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, okay, when's that going to happen? There's been signs, like I said, my period, I've had a couple hot flashes where I'm like, ooh, that's a hot flash, like internal heat from your core.
Yes.
And so I think like a lot of people, I'm playing with all these ideas of like, should I take this supplement? Should I be doing this? Should I get a hysterectomy? What else could I be doing to make this better? And I love that your approach again is just bringing it back to the basics, but it sounds like it's something that's going to have to be tweaked every once in a while because we're just shifting and growing. And I think your mindset grows as well. So what is working, eventually, I think with anything you do, it's going to be stagnant. And so you've got to up level. So what is cortisol? Speak on that a little bit and then dive back into that topic.
Yeah. So cortisol is a stress hormone. It's not a bad thing. It's getting slandered online right now. Like, cortisol evil. With anything in the body, it's about homeostasis.
Yeah. I feel like people are like, my face is fat because my cortisol levels are up. That's what I've seen online. It's like, you're holding on to excess body weight on your left butt cheek. It's because your cortisol levels are off, or it's so silly what you see online. But anyways, go on.
Absolutely. It's like cortisol face, which,
right.
Hormones that are out of balance are just a messenger. It's just a messenger that something's out of whack in your body. Yeah. They're not like this unsolvable thing. That's what's so exciting to me. So cortisol is our stress hormone. It gives us energy and we're supposed to have it rise slowly in the morning. It's the opposite of melatonin. So you can think of cortisol and melatonin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for every hormone you have in the body, you have like this opposing hormone. And the human body is perfect. Our modern society and the way we live as modern humans is what's messing it up. Do you ever just stop and be like, God, it shouldn't be this hard to just like be a human.
Oh, it is exhausting to do all the right things. Now, and I think humans as a whole entity, no, we'll take anything and mess it up or confuse it or change it. we're just not a good species in that regard.
We're really screwing it up because I just look, I'm constantly reminded after this kind of like phase 2, hormone education that I got into, like, God, we're animals, and we like to forget that. And if you look at animals, the only animals that are suffering really are domesticated animals who are subjected to the same BS that we've subjected ourselves to with food, with lack of fresh air and sunlight. So it's like, it's such a great mirror of like, no, it's not, wild species, like they adapt and they're living in alignment with nature. They are a part of nature.
Yeah.
It's just like the further we disconnect from that, the more issues we have. So with cortisol, as you get older as a woman, and, the age is going to be different for everyone, but we become more, well, in general, we're more stress sensitive. When we hit around, somewhere between 35 to 40, our ability to handle stress plummets. So I like to give a visual of this. So, in this, like the 3 days before your period for most women, like everything sucks. Like, what is the point of anything? I hate it. Like your partner's breathing, you want to punch him in the face. Like that state of right before your period is when your hormones are the lowest. That state is really what we start to move to as we get older. So especially right around 40 and beyond, we start, hormones start to shift downward, and we're getting to this place, right? So our brain has to recalibrate. It's like a second puberty. So our brain has to recalibrate to new hormone levels. So as we go through that process, we just can't put up with the same amount of stress. And when I talk about stress, the women that we speak with, they have no idea how stressed they are. They have no idea. Zero. So for you, Natalie, if you have rearranged your lifestyle, you have ownership and agency in your life. Those are huge factors. Alone, right? Your body might be able to handle a 5:30 a.m. fasted workout. For women who are like burning the candle at both ends, not sleeping, working 70 hours a week, not eating enough, like not getting their protein in, like you're already doing the foundational basics to minimize massive stressors. Women who their stress bucket is too full, they can't do a 5:30 a.m. fasted workout and not have a negative impact of that.
Yeah. I think I started that stress level at a very young age. And I think for a long time, I really felt like, wow, I'm thriving. Like I'm handling these crazy crisis at home and this and that. And like, I'm doing good and I'm performing at work and I'm overworking, like all of the things. And then I would say in my 30s, I really toned down the lifestyle and everything that I was doing. And now I think about it now all the time. Like I don't have a lot of stress in my life, really. And I just wonder how I'm going to handle a truly stressful situation because I just don't deal with that like organized chaos like I used to.
Yep.
It's just not in my lifestyle. I don't put myself in those positions anymore. And it's a lot of just kind of go with the flow and accept things how they go. And it's so great to be in that position versus like, but when you're in it and you're younger, you feel good about it. You feel like you're accomplishing things and you're a badass and you're able to handle all of these things. And I think it's very easy for women to feel like they're thriving in that environment. And then once you remove yourself and you see somebody in that environment, you're like exhausted just listening to them,
Yes. Thank you. Yes, for saying that. Cause they're telling me their story. I'm like, tell me about like, give me a rundown of your day. Oh, it just hurts my heart. And when you're in it, like you're saying, you don't even realize. And it's wear that badge of honor of, being able to juggle it all. I always my mom always likes to remind me, she was like, honey, we fought for women's rights for you to have it all, but not to do it all. She's like, y'all are crazy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we do like to do things.
Yeah.
And we want to be efficient at all of them and we want to take on more and look like we have it all together. Whereas we can't do that.
We can't. And your body, we might be able to get away with it for short spurts and periods of time, like maybe in our 20s and 30s. But if you keep living that cycle and that lifestyle as a woman, unfortunately, our physiology says otherwise. Yeah. And it's gonna backfire at some point.
Yeah. Your body is gonna let you know.
Oh, absolutely. And that was what happened for me at turning 40. I was running every day. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff that, like, now looking back, like it's counterintuitive to everything I know now, but it was too much stress. My husband took this new job at the time, and he was working like 60 hours a week, and I self-employed, I'm doing my thing, and it was just like, it was like too many things all at once.
Yeah.
And I was so puffy and inflamed, and I was sobbing, just like, I could not stop crying. It was like, I'm not a crier. I'm not a big crier in my life. And I got to this point, and I was just like, just sobbing every single day. And I was like, I don't know what I need. I need like an exorcism. Like, I don't know what's happening to my body. And I'm like, the worst part was, I'm like, I am a freaking coach. Like, I'm a nutrition coach, and I don't even know what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And nothing had changed about anything I was eating. And so
you were out of control, but thinking you were in control.
And so then that really led me down this additional path of really understanding how hormones work from the top down. And, I always thought, that's not me. I can handle way more stress. Like, I'm super strong, I'm good. And I'm like, oh crap, like, I can't run anymore. I can't skip all these meals. Like, I have to really, I became a walker. I became a professional walker. I'm like, all I do is like, I lift weights and I walk, and I'm obsessed with walking. I'm
a professional walker as well. I love it. So I did a drop-in class at Barry's boot camp in San Francisco yesterday morning.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. It was so much running. I was running going, why are you doing this? This is awful. Like, you're going to die. I felt the workout all day. I was like exhausted, and just was like, this is not my thing. And I get that it's other people's things. You get the runner's high, like, you get that, like, you're like thriving in this chaotic situation. And I'm just so far removed from that. I'm like running going, why are all of you doing this? Why am I here? But obviously it was just a one-time thing. But going back to what you said, it's just like, you don't have to push it to the extreme, but maybe that's just a part of growing up and getting older too. We want to push ourselves more in our 20s. We want to do things. Our ego is higher. What we got to prove to the world, to ourselves, to our parents, like, we're trying to prove and make and create who we are. And that's probably part of a lot of people's stories.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And really, with exercise, if you look at the data for women, which, by the way, most studies in health, fitness, nutrition are done on men and young men, because women, especially menstruating women, are more expensive to study. So all the intermittent fasting data, all of that has been studied actually in obese men and post-menopausal women. Okay. So if you don't fall in that category, you should not be taking that information and applying.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with you and I.
Nope. And especially like active women. So really it's like sifting through that noise. And, I think we get to that point where we have to really take seriously. It sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but take stress seriously when you get to that point.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes like a cortisol management issue first and foremost. And then understanding, how does your light environment, so natural light versus artificial light, I've got a red light filter on, I've got my windows wide open, I'm getting natural sunlight coming in. That's a whole other study and added factor that we're moving into supporting women with in the fall.
So how did you connect the dots on that? Like, because I would never, I see a little bit of like red light therapy, people wearing yellow glasses and all of that, but I don't really know much more about that. So how did you connect the dots of like hormone health and light therapy? How did those marry together?
It was a lot of reading and a lot of research. So for anyone who knows human design, I'm a 5-1 generator. So I am a research nerd.
Yeah. I'm a 6-2 generator.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So you're Shannon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So she's like, she does and partakes in new experiences. That's how she learns. I research the crap out of it
100%.
at least 2 years before I make a decision. I'm
Oh,
like,
that makes you guys the perfect match for each other, which is another reason why people should be running and signing up for this. Is you guys are the yin and the yang. Like that's a good marriage right there.
we are business wives because I always joke around. I'm like, if you weren't here, I would never launch anything. I'd be like, no, we need to make this more robust and it has to be perfect and we need more data and we need more.
No. She's like, just put it out there and shut up.
Exactly. She's like, this needs to get out now.
Yeah.
But I kept researching. And so the more and more I was studying about, okay, estrogen, progesterone, perimenopause, and I kept going deeper, deeper, deeper. And I'm like, well, what impacts estrogen? Like what controls estrogen? Oh, it's up there's this hierarchy of hormones. And then once I got to the top of the hormone hierarchy with cortisol and insulin in particular, then I'm looking into, well, what impacts cortisol besides like stress? And there is a new branch of science that's been out for a few years, maybe like a decade. It's called quantum biology. Science always lags. It won't be accepted probably for another 20, 50, 100 years, who knows? But it is the study of quantum physics, so looking at subatomic particles, but the impact of that in the human body. So quantum on the small level, biology, the human body.
Okay.
So looking at the impact of things like our artificial environment that we live in and how is that impacting us on a cellular level, impacting our mitochondrial health and our hormone production. So the one thing that the biggest takeaway I could share and why natural light and getting light in sequential order, like you probably heard from the Huberman podcast, get your morning light. It literally impacts your sex hormone production. What you need to know is that all your organs on the inside of your body, it's dark inside.
Yeah.
Your organs have no access to light. And your whole entire, every process in the body is riding on this circadian cycle. And in order to get that signal of, hey, like what hormone should I produce at what time? It needs to understand what time of day it is. And we get that signal through light.
Got
and
it.
When I was like, this is getting weird.
Yeah. This is getting a little woo-woo for me. Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out why my body was freaking out at 40. And I thought I was in perimenopause. And then it led me down this rabbit hole. And all I did was implement these simple practices like getting outside at sunrise. I was always a night owl. I would eat late at night. I would stay up late. As an entrepreneur and like having kids, I'm like some of my best work was done from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. because the kids were sleeping. And then once I realized, oh my God, my body's been on this like flip-flop schedule. Now I'm up at sunrise. I can't keep my eyes open past 9 p.m., which is unheard of for me. I've always been a night owl. I'm getting morning light in through my eyes, which is how your body, if this is the only place we really receive light to give that signaling to our other organs for proper hormone production, that has shifted everything. And the women in our container who are doing these practices and just little small changes, their experience is changing. Like they're basically coming out of menopause or perimenopause. Like their menstrual cycles are regulating again, which to me, whenever I discover something like that from such simple shifts as like, oh, go outside and watch the sunrise and then try and go outside every hour and get that light signal. It's free and it's so life-changing. I'm like, why is this not front page news?
Yeah, absolutely. So sunlight early in the morning, which by the way, I'll say it again, since talking with Shannon on Wednesday, I've had coffee outside after my toast with peanut butter outside every morning since.
Okay.
And it's chilly where I'm at. So I just wrap a blanket around me, but it's getting lighter and lighter earlier. Like the sun was basically out at 5:30 this morning, pretty much. It was it was easy. My dog came outside with me. We sat out there and then I went off to the gym. So
That's perfect.
I'm going to be your beta tester on the outside just to see.
Yes, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And then, so really that morning sunlight, it's going to slowly turn off melatonin and slowly increase cortisol. Then that makes sense for this time of year, Natalie, to do that early morning workout.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much in the winter when we're, so
Yeah.
and we can revisit because that's a whole other discussion. But then you're really looking at the light, like natural light is giving your body hormone production signals. An hour after sunrise is when you really want to get out for that sun signal, because that is essential and crucial for sex hormone production. So thyroid, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, even as females, we want the right amount of testosterone.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen those funny clips and reels online of like people sunbathing naked and like legs over the ear. That is why, because the sun signal connects to the inside of our organs and it tells
yes, I have seen that and it's always funny and we make fun of it and you send it to your friends and you're like, what is this person doing? So it's actually real. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. And it's like, do we need to go to that extreme? No, you could just walk outside. We have light receptors on our skin, but you can go outside and it only needs to be a couple minutes, at a time and just get the signal.
So get outside, people. She's not saying strip down and lay naked in the grass in your backyard and scare your neighbors.
I mean, if you have the privacy,
or do it,
more power to you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
That is, I think, crucial information that nobody is talking about.
It's very
yeah, I think people are just dancing on these topics. And I think that they're huge, especially for women, like you were saying, basically 35 and up or 30 and up. I think we're all feeling a little bit of all of these symptoms or all of these. And again, medicine or Western medicine is just treating the symptom, not the root cause. And that is something that I speak with some of my clients about, is like, let's treat the root cause of what you have going on, not necessarily like, let me just sit there with you and pat your back while you cry about your boyfriend or this issue or that issue. And so I think it's huge. And I think when you dial that in with nutrition, like you're going to be unstoppable, like it's so you've been doing this new tier of your hormone work just yourself. And now you guys are building a program based on this.
Yeah. So it's been about 4 years.
Say that again.
I've been like really practicing these, what I call like light hygiene or, syncing with your natural circadian rhythm now for about 2 years.
And how has that shifted things for you? Because I know you said when you hit 40, like things just shifted. So talk to me a little bit about how it was and then how it is now.
My body is like the happiest, most balanced, most like physically fit I've ever been in my entire adult life.
And this isn't because you're walking around with Tupperware and weighing food and being extremely rigid with every single thing. This is you just making some tweaks. Obviously, nutrition is a passion. I assume you eat very healthy for the majority of time.
What's amazing through this whole process is like, yes, there's like what we teach in our main Awaken Your Nutrition program. Like there's a value and a time and place where if you track your food and you're understanding what's in all these different foods that you're eating, like the micronutrient and macronutrient composition and the amount, portions, and you can make it your superpower. So now I look at food and I'm like, oh, I know exactly how many calories I can add it up in my head and I can make like instantaneous decisions. That has its time and place, but really our goal is to help people intuitively eat without having to do any of that crap. And when you bring in these new kind of like lifestyle practices of like really living in alignment with nature and the way your body's meant to be living as much as possible in a modern setup, be amazed at what your body can tolerate. Where I'm like, like I have so much more flexibility with what I'm eating. So I'll be
Yeah.
like, Chick-fil-A cookie, like I am consciously making this decision because I love that freaking cookie. And, old me would have been like, oh, I can't have that, or restrict so much that I had like, 10 of them or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
now my body, because I'm doing all these like restorative practices and living like so much in homeostasis, I have more wiggle room with my diet, which is really fascinating. I think a big one too that really was a game changer for me was not over exercising. And I can't,
Mhm.
no pun intended, like can't stress that enough, because if you look at the data, women and who are doing too much intense exercise, it is because we're more stress sensitive. It has like a paradox effect in the body.
Yeah.
Your appetite goes through the roof. And if you don't have your nutrition dialed in, it can actually be the cause of your like inflammation and weight gain if you're struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that exacerbated when you hit that kind of like middle age, so 40 and perimenopausal years and up. So for me, it was again getting that cortisol in check, not over exercising, turning into like Julie Andrews from The Sound of Music, just like all I want to do was walk and get outside and be in the sun. That's my, if I could sum it up, if I could just go to walking, do some stretching, and get outside, get a tan.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that is the best way. I've tried every type of exercise, and I think just slowing things down and weight training is just where I thrive.
Yes.
And it's just always been a thing. I was with a girlfriend this morning. We were walking and we were talking. She's a Pilates instructor, and we were just kind of talking about how we prefer just the slower pace, but still wanting to be muscular and have definition. And I made a comment to her, and I was like, I want to be able to kill an assailant with my thigh strength, like, yes, but I don't want to die at the gym going crazy, and like where to find the balance of that.
Yeah, because a lot of these like Barry's boot camp, especially, oh my gosh, Peloton and Soul Cycle and all these classes, they might feel good after because you have this endorphin and neurotransmitter release. But honestly, it's so intense on the female body, and we're not meant to do that intense.
It's releasing too much stress.
Increases your cortisol. And even, the women who are doing, half marathons and so much running and cardio, I'm just like, if you don't counterbalance that with strength training and cross training and adequate sleep and enough protein and eating enough, that's going to be an additional chronic stressor on the body. And in our world, we like to say you have to earn your cardio.
I love that.
I'm like, you don't get to do intense, steady state chronic cardio unless you have all these things. You have to earn your cardio.
Yeah, no, I want to get cardio from like Bulgarian split squats, and that's about it. Or like, walking on a treadmill at like an incline.
Yes, that is
how I want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this. So for people who don't know where to find you, can you just run through like your Instagram, where they can find you, and just talk about really quickly the new programs that you guys are going to be launching soon? Because I think a lot of people are going to be interested. I'm here for it 100%.
Yay. So the best place to find us on Instagram, our handle is thegreendoor.life. We basically share, with any kind of social media, like we give so much free value. We're like, everything's there. When you join our container, the difference is, okay, how do I take all that education? How do I receive it in an organized, discerned way? We need accountability,
Yeah, I can run wild. I can go on YouTube and probably teach myself everything, but if somebody's not like, Natalie, come on, then yeah.
And then like having a guide and mentor to like fast track you through the stuff that doesn't apply to you, or that is, misinformation, or just not applicable to you, or what needs to be adapted like bio individually. Because it's like, we all know, protein's important. How much do you really need? And is there such thing as too much protein? Hint, yes, there is. You will feel it in your body, probably through constipation, especially if you're not drinking enough water and getting enough fiber. So the greendoor.life on Instagram is a great place to kind of just check us out, see what we're all about. If you're ready to take that a step further in terms of free education, we have 2 masterclasses. You can go to the Green Door Life /menopause. That is like I refilmed it. It's a 90-minute hormones training. That is, I just like put it all out there. I'm like, I need all my women to know this information. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I knew at age 14. And then our free nutrition masterclass, just go to the greendoorlife.com and scroll to the bottom. And there's a little form you can submit to watch our free nutrition masterclass, which we've been running that since 2021. And we still get told like that's the best masterclass I've ever watched. So
Yeah. Awesome.
A lot of free info there. And then Awaken Your Cycles. If you subscribe to our newsletter, also on the greendoorlife.com webpage, you'll get notified of when we launch, and probably this August. We're really launching that out soon.
That's going to be a game changer, I think, for so many women. I think it's just going to be like the next chapter of how to conquer this next thing. Because I think a lot of us especially women, we crave more information. We want to get better. We want to investigate things. We want to keep growing and keep becoming the best versions of ourselves. And I think this is going to land 100%. So I'm so happy to have you women in my corner and to just know of you. And I have Jocelyn to thank for all of that. Because I would have never found you guys, I don't think, and so I'm just so grateful to be in connection with you and Shannon and the Green Door Life. I think you guys are really putting out some great positive shit that people need to know about.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And when we find our people, it's just like, it's same vibe, same kind of drive, and like wanting, like you're saying, like wanting to like maximize our time here. Like I want the optimal human life experience. And it doesn't have to be, I think the biggest thing that when you get your mindset in check is like, it doesn't have to be boring or not fun. Like being healthy, like our biggest thing is like, it can be a really enjoyable, nourishing thing to be healthy.
Absolutely. And I just think that it is the natural next step. I think a lot of us are phasing out of partying and drinking. I have a lot of friends, I don't drink, but I have a lot of friends that are they don't drink anymore, or they're really just limiting it because it doesn't serve them anymore. They're hungover, they can't function, they can't go to kids' sports, they have anxiety for 2 days. Like there's so much of that around alcohol too. And I think it's just another thing that we are going to slowly phase out. Alcohol will never phase out, but in order to grow and get to the next step.
Yeah, I think it'll become like, we'll look back on this and be like, oh my gosh, it's like cigarettes. Like, oh, I can't believe we drank. Yeah,
for sure. You're like, who does that anymore?
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
We'll have to do a podcast on alcohol. That could be its own thing.
Oh, I could talk on that topic forever. So tune in for like part 2.
Yeah.
We could go way farther on all sorts of topics. So Thank you so much for being here. I just really value all of your education. Thank you for having that type of brain. Thank you for being that type of generator. The world needs you. And I think this is the sky's the limit with you ladies.
Thank you so much, Natalie. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, good. Bye, Lisa.
Bye.
Okay, good. Bye, Lisa.
Bye.